Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio. Once again with me, Nick Bernabe, the longtime host of the Anti-Media Radio. Thank you all for tuning in. We had a crazy show Monday. Last night, I mean, if you were tuning in last night, SM Gibson had an explosive show. He actually had a woman on that claims to have actually been raped by Bill Clinton. Horrible, horrible tragedy what went on. But we interviewed her for like over 30 minutes, and she told her whole story. And it's pretty shocking stuff, heartbreaking. Just man. We're dealing with people that run this country, these weird, sick psychopaths that do a lot of nasty things, and very, very few of them are immune to it. Trump and Bill Clinton, of course, he's not running for president, but he's tied into this whole thing, have been accused of sexual assault and things related to that, and they're also both tied to this Epstein character, which is this weird billionaire that was running some kind of pedophile ring, and both Trump and Bill Clinton are acquaintances with this guy. So, who knows what'll come out over the course of this election, and what kind of dirt is going to be slung out there. I wouldn't be surprised that both of these candidates are already, like Trump and Hillary Clinton, are already overwhelmingly unlikable and unpopular, and just have a very low, very high negativity rating, I guess you could say. So we don't know how what's going to be pulled out of the hat. Who knows? But we're gonna dig into it. We'll be covering all this stuff really closely as time goes on. Let me introduce my panel tonight. We've got one of our amazing journalists, Jake Anderson, on the line. What's up, Jake?
Not much, man. I don't know if that adjective is applicable to me. Amazing, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I read your article, and actually I published your article that we're going to talk about first. And, man, great piece of work. Very entertaining and informative and funny as well. Yeah, amazing work, actually. So definitely applies to you. And we've also got Manny Aguilar joining us on the line. What's up, Manny?
What's up, Nick? What's up, Jake, and all that?
Hey, buddy.
Just been busy fighting the big enemy, Monsanto. That was big down there in San Diego.
Hell yeah.
And so, we kind of been fighting Trump down in L.A., and now I think I'm going to have to be going towards San Diego at least Friday, probably go down there and then come back the same day, because same busy all over the place. But it looks like that guy is going all over the place, and Trump needs to stop spreading the hate and start spreading the love.
Manny, there was actually a riot here in Albuquerque where I'm at, because Trump had a rally there yesterday, and a protest started and actually turned into a riot, and they had police with riot gear out there.
That's crazy.
I wish I had known. I'm such a idiot. If I had known that was going to be there, I could have gone down there with an iPhone and gotten some footage of that. Oh well.
Well, you could have thrown on a mask and joined in on the fun, right?
Yeah, sounds like fun.
And it looks like something brewing right now. I think in Anaheim. I think Trump's over here in Anaheim now. And I just saw some video, and it looks like it's popping off again. And then he's going to be in San Diego, as Manny mentioned. And the police here are already putting out statements saying that they're taking certain precautions and stuff, and that they're going to be they're actually telegraphing the fact that they're going to be really heavy-handed and making arrests and that kind of thing. I think they're trying to preemptively kind of stymie the people trying to get rowdy out there, so they're going to be pretty trigger happy when it comes to arresting people, and they'll probably be out there in riot gear and that kind of thing. But it brings us to an interesting point here with Trump is the fact that he's already, he's not even elected yet, but he's already opposed at every place he goes for the most part, and I don't even think Bush had this much opposition at the end of his term. You know what I mean? And so this is a really interesting dynamic. And me, I'm one of those people that think that, politicians, I'm not a fan of the government. I don't think politicians should be intervening in our lives, and I don't think they should be intervening in a lot of the stuff that they're doing right now. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think Trump is as dangerous as Hillary Clinton is. Don't get me wrong, I disagree with Trump on pretty much everything, but the fact that he has existential opposition is almost kind of encouraging, right? It's because, it's like he wouldn't be able to get away with anything because people would be, opposing him everywhere he goes. And, as weird as it sounds, that's almost like a favorable trait at this point, because we're dealing with a government that's just so inept that we don't want somebody like Hillary Clinton that does cross the aisle and that does actually cut deals, bureaucratic, oligarchy type deals that, she's pretty much well known for. We want someone that's kind of polarizing like Trump, because at least people will stand up to him and not let him get away with this crap. What do you guys think of that? First, I'm going to go to DB because he just joined us. What do you think of that, man?
Yeah, I mean, that's a spot on analysis. I think everybody realizes going forward who the real criminal is and who's just a robber baron and really inherited his wealth. And is, as much as he may be a parasite, he's not a guy that would necessarily continue the neocon platform of the new American century of bombing everyone and starting war everywhere and biting off more than we can chew. So, yeah, there's a lot of opposition to him. Some of it's legit, though, because he says inflammatory stuff that's polarizing and it divides people. But I'm sure he has provocateurs. I'm sure that some of the people throwing rocks at the Albuquerque rally he had are they're probably paid.
Always a chance that could happen. During the smaller riots that were going on in Oakland last year, one of the protests, 2 undercover cops were outed within the protest. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the imagery. It was a guy, holding his buddy, and then he pulled out a gun. He was pointing a gun at the crowd, and he was even pointing it at journalists and stuff, because some people within the protests kind of suspected these guys were cops, and they outed them, and sure enough, they actually were. And the guy had to pull out a gun because he was scared that they were going to do something to him. So there are provocateurs that can be definitely placed within these movements, and who knows? I mean, honestly, I think Trump benefits from these really, really radical crowds, because it kind of it puts his supporters further into their corner of fear.
But it's horrible for our overall relations as a country, though. Really.
Yeah, it really is. But sadly enough, as strange as it sounds, I think the more violent these protests against Trump get, the more his support kind of solidifies. as if it weren't already like sealed in, as it already is. It's already his support's already locked in. But I mean, these violent protests and stuff. Not saying I'm against them or for them or anything like that, but it's going to seal in his support even more because a lot of his support are these middle-aged, middle-class white people that already feel like they're under siege from every angle, and whether it's legitimate or just puffed up. These kind of protests and stuff are definitely going to make them continue to feel the way they're feeling. So, I don't really know how.
And it's hilariously misguided because it goes hand in hand with a lot of the outsourcing problems, and then that drives immigration inwards too. A lot of people don't get that we export our poverty and make people come here out of necessity.
Yeah, exactly, and that's in many ways that's what NAFTA did. And I wrote the article last month sometime about how Hillary Clinton is at least partially responsible for the rise of Trump because she supported a lot of these policies like NAFTA that gave us the immigration crisis to begin with. And the foreign policy debacle that we have going on right now, where we've got a war basically going on in every Muslim region in the world. That's why there's Muslim refugees trying to get to the United States, because we've got wars going on in all those countries, and they're trying to get the hell out.
Name a part of the globe we're not at war with. I mean, I even read yesterday that we're killing dolphins and whales by the thousands with sonar testing. I mean, where are we not screwing things up?
Yeah, in fact, here in San Diego, there was a big fight about that in the Bay because it is harming the dolphins and stuff. And a lot of the whales and stuff around here is all this military testing, and it's just huge. It's crazy. I literally can't go outside for more than 20 minutes without some kind of military helicopter, whether it's a Black Hawk or an Apache, literally flying over my place. I mean, I am here in San Diego, where it's one of the huge military cities, and it's also a border city. So they've got a huge military presence here, but it's just overwhelming. And every time I see the helicopters up there, I can't help but think that they're just up there trying to remind us, like, hey guys, we're here. Don't try nothing funny, because we've got all this heavy weaponry that we could use against you. And of course it's also a projection of force to people around the world, and Obama, he's not hiding the fact now that he's making this major geopolitical shift to Asia. I mean, they've been calling it the pivot to Asia for a long time, but now he's making good on it. I mean, he was just in Vietnam. I mean, I think he's still in Vietnam, but he just announced that they're going to lift the arms embargo that they had against Vietnam. So we're going to be arming them so that they can fight against the Chinese if needed. And then the TPP thing, he's also over there trying to sell the TPP as well. And that anybody that actually really knows what's going on with the TPP knows that it's like World War III of economics against China, basically. And they're trying to build an economic Great Wall around China to stem their influence and to get their economy under our thumb. We can do whatever we want with it, and we have a bunch of leverage over them if we can just say, hey, we're gonna not manufacture stuff in China when we could just go to Vietnam and get the same kind of labor rates. You know what I mean?
And they're starting at the core industry, which is steel, which is really the only thing that China is making besides cheap consumer goods that are cheaper and better than anywhere else. And we're tariffing them out of here. We're already pre-TPPing China. I don't think people understand that. Like, it is pre-war right now.
Yeah, and the tariff thing, that's actually something that you can pull right out of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders' platform. And that's something that we're already doing, and it's causing a big ruckus with China-U.S. relations. So, anyway, interesting stuff on the political front. Let me get a few more of these mainstream politics stuff out of the way. Hillary Clinton, man, like I said, we had a huge bombshell interview yesterday with S.M. Gibson on the Anti-Media Radio with Juanita Broaddrick, who claims that Bill Clinton sexually assaulted her back in couple decades ago, but regardless, it's still relevant because she never really had a chance to hold him accountable or anything like that. So,
and she's been blacklisted. Am I correct?
I mean, she's been like the media has attacked her character and stuff like that. Couple interesting things came out in that interview. She said that before she went public, she was being followed by like unmarked cars and stuff, and that once when she was on vacation, she got home and found out her house had been broken into. The only thing missing was the tape from her voicemail. And so that to me kind of struck me as odd. Maybe someone had called her and left her a message, and someone powerful was like, "Oh shit, we need to make sure we intercept that or something." Because yeah, very weird. I mean, who's going to break into a house and steal your tape from your voicemail recording machine? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But very interesting stuff. We got an article on it on the antimedia.org. It's actually our top story right now. The title is a Bill Clinton rape survivor just told us the real story the media refuses to tell. And this is really one of the longest times she's been able to speak freely to the media, and it was with us. And so there's a lot of new stuff that came out in that. Some other stuff about Clinton, and we're working on another story. I mean, the trouble just doesn't stop. She just got hammered again today. It turns out that she was once again mishandling her email stuff. She was violating rules, quote unquote. They're not saying that she broke the law per se, but they're saying that she broke the rules. I mean, Hillary Clinton is really a hobbled candidate. She's so weak. I mean, she can't fend off Bernie Sanders, which, you know, no offense, but come on, the guy's an old socialist crank, right? I mean, who would have ever thought that he would have a chance in hell of beating Hillary Clinton? And look at him. He's still in the race. He's still giving her a fight. And, you know, who knows what's going to happen. California's coming up, the biggest state in the country.
And it's so wrought with fraud, Nick. I mean, let's be honest. If she doesn't get into office, she's probably going to go to prison for either the stuff pre-election or for this crap she's pulling.
Seriously, I mean, wouldn't that make a lot of people happy? I remember on April Fool's Day, I wrote that article about how Hillary Clinton was finally indicted. And I clearly made it in like I clearly like stated this is an April Fool's joke, you know, and you know I know you guys wished it was really true. Man, people were like flipping out. They were like, the story went so viral because people thought it was true. Like people were so happy about it. I mean,
You got tarred and feathered for that, man.
Yeah, I did. They got so mad at me, even though I clearly stated it was an April Fool's joke.
She can only pardon herself. No one else is going to do it for her.
Yeah, seriously, right? I mean, this is a historical election because just both of the candidates, Trump and Hillary, are just so hated. I mean, it's overwhelming the amount of dislike there is for these two candidates, and it's also actually a positive thing. And I want to bring up Jake's article today, which I mentioned earlier. Great article. 10 people you can vote for in 2016 not named Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. Because, you know, the dislike for these two candidates is actually opening up a big window of opportunity for people who typically wouldn't have a chance in hell at winning an election. You know, basically third parties or independents. They never get a chance because they don't get any media play, and the public has been so brainwashed that, you know, the typical excuse you hear when you tell someone about a third party candidate, it's like, yeah, you know, you might believe this, but there's a third party candidate that like is way more, you know, aligned with your ideology and stuff, and people are like, well, that's fine, but they can't win. You know, it's impossible for these people to win, and that's been like the mantra going for the last couple decades. I think, what was it? Ralph Nader was the last one to cause any kind of big stink in the third party realm. But because of the fact that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are so disliked, it's now opening up real opportunities for something big to happen. And we talked about this last show briefly about, well, maybe the Republican Party splits and some type of like more libertarian leaning party is formed out of the rubble, and maybe the Democratic Party splits and some kind of more progressive party is formed out of the rubble.
But just to quickly interject, the only problem with that then becomes that it's too late, because now we're at a general election problem, and we're now at a convention that is going to actually allow somebody like a Trump or a Clinton to run this country because we couldn't make changes quick enough. And we have to open up the primaries. That's the biggest problem we have right now, is like all these little counties with all these so-called fringe candidates and all these smaller parties. they're strong in certain parts of the country. You know, there's places in the Midwest where libertarianism is huge because a lot of the manufacturing has been offshored. So people are like, screw big government, screw big companies. So, I mean, we have to get to the point where we have open primaries, get involved in that, because otherwise, how do we change the system? By the time we get to a general election, it's your choice of one of two, and they both work for the same people, so it's too late. So opentheprimary.org or whatever. There's a bunch of petitions going around. There's a lot of things you can do to just get ahead of it. Otherwise, why play this game anymore if we can't have any effect on it?
And they got to open the debates, man. I mean, that's another huge problem. If these third parties were given a fair shake with the media, at least given some debate, like national airtime for debates, at least one or two, three. I mean,
and cross-party.
Think of it. Think of the amount of ideas that would get thrown out there that people would be like, holy shit, minds would be blown when they hear there was a couple third-party debates recently. I know the Libertarians had a debate, and then there was like a left-wing third-party debate. I believe it may have been on RT. I could be wrong. But, dude, the stuff being talked about in these debates is just – it literally will give you chills, man. These people are like actually talking about root issues, root problems, unlike what we hear in the mainstream debates where it's like people hacking at the limbs of the issues and never getting down to the roots of it.
And McAfee's just a gem, isn't he? This is the kind of guy you want in politics, a guy who got rich off tech, so he's not old money, and he can't be bought. He doesn't need to be bought, and he can fund himself. I mean, he's the ideal candidate for the future.
Candidate, man. That being said, we're going to have a VP candidate on the show tonight. I'll introduce him a little bit later, but I want to give Jake the floor real quick because this article is awesome. You give people 10 different options outside of the Trump and Hillary paradigm. So, Jake, let's go over like a couple of these candidates. What can you tell us about this stuff?
Oh, cool. Well, first of all, let me say that I think the reason I was interested in writing this, you pitched it to me, and I was like, I need to learn more, and because I didn't know. Actually, first off, can you hear me?
Yeah, dude, we can hear you fine.
Okay, great. So I distrust all politicians like you, but I think it's good. We're in a statist paradigm right now, so we have to be able to embrace a greater spectrum of how people would like to use government. So I absolutely agree. I think the biggest win that could come from these third-party runs is getting some third parties into the debates. I think your point was spot on with that. We have to get more people in the debates so we can get people listening to different points of view. Now, I actually think, this is going to sound kind of crazy, I think at the end of this, in the next 10 years, we could actually see 6 parties. I'll come back to that. I'll tell you my theory on how we could have a 6-party system. But, okay, so I start with this list of 10, and of course there's quite literally hundreds. If you look at the list of independent candidates, some of them have very highfalutin names. Bush did 9/11. All kinds of funny names. No, really, there's like literally dozens and dozens of like clearly satirical candidates that you could write in if you wanted. So I start with Bernie Sanders, and the reason I list him, even though he's really not a third-party candidate, he's running for the nomination of the Democratic Party, but there are some who believe that he's trying to cause an insurrection in the DNC, and that one of his purposes is to kind of help foment this third-party revolution. I don't know how much of that I buy, and there are problems with Bernie Sanders. His ties to the military-industrial complex are well established at this point. So liberals, I think it's good that young people are getting so excited about him and getting engaged with some of these issues, but I think it's also important that young people understand that his record points to that he would support most military interventions. And let's be honest, once you get into office, you're a puppet, and we all know that. So the best we could hope for from Bernie Sanders is a Jimmy Carter administration. However, let me move on
And
because
well, I want to make one comment about Sanders, and the thing that I do like a lot about him is that he acknowledges that it's, that he himself wouldn't really be able to do much, even if he did get elected. It's not. People need to get it through their heads that it's not about the presidential politician, man. It's like the main issue here is that we need a change of mind within the public.
right.
He's an executive. I mean, he's a figurehead. So the main thing is getting all these House of Rep guys out, man. They need to go. And the senators, these lifetime senators, they need to go too.
Right. So the first real third-party candidate on the list, of course, is Jill Stein. And Nick, you covered an article on the Anti-Media about whether this is the year of the Green Party. And Jill Stein is really upping her game on social media. She's, really, starting to, I think, tap into the zeitgeist here and, help form this schism in the Democrat. I call the parties in this article crime syndicates, each one, the DNC and the GOP. To me, they're crime syndicates. That's a whole other article. I'm not going to go into why I think that. It's, of course, very unlikely that any of these people can win. But if Jill Stein can continue to show how this is basically a rigged duopoly, our political system, and she can do that with a very progressive agenda. And it's not out of the question that once Bernie Sanders' run is over, that those two could form a coalition. And that plays into my six-party theory. I'll come back to that. So Gary Johnson is running there's two Libertarian candidates that actually could push the needle on the Libertarian brand. The first is Gary Johnson, who, of course, many would say he's a phantom of Ron Paul. But he's on the issues. I personally disagree with him on some stuff, but he's an interesting candidate. He's against cap and trade, which doesn't make environmentalists happy, but he does want kind of a pro-states, collaborative, incentive-driven approach to environmental issues, which could be interesting. So,
and I think he wants to end or at least audit the Fed, right?
Yeah, pretty much everyone on this list wants, except Bernie Sanders and possibly Jill Stein, pretty much every single one of them wants to either abolish or audit the Fed. I mean, that's a common thread among them. Roseanne Barr, who's also on the list, who I didn't realize how much I agreed with her on stuff. I disagree with that she married Tom Arnold, but that's her journey. But, look, she's pro-marijuana legalization. She opposes private prisons. She wants to forgive all student loans. She opposes the destructive free trade agreements. She thinks the military-industrial complex is our shadow government. The list goes on and on. I mean, Roseanne Barr is someone to appreciate and support. She probably won't do well this election because there's so much third-party.
The only thing that really came out strongly that I've not in the article here, but what I've seen before from her on Twitter is that she's kind of like this big time Zionist, I guess.
Right.
But everyone has their opinions and stuff. You can never agree with any of these politicians or political parties 100%. I mean, that's something that we're going to have to accept. It's
important to accept that not only political candidates, but of each other as people as well. We're never going to agree on everything. We have to learn to put aside our differences and form a coalition. I'll get back to that. So I don't want to jump over McAfee too much, but he, like DB was saying, it's very important that we get a techno-libertarian, in the debate here. He wants to create something called a digital transformation office because he thinks the government is so behind the ball on cyber issues that it's an issue. And I personally am surprised that we haven't had a major terror attack involving cyber terror. I actually think that's the future of terrorism, whether it's false flags or not. That's going to be the future of terrorism because it's a lot cheaper than hiring a bunch of crisis actors. You know what I mean? Quickly, I want to make sure we get some of these people in here that would never be talked about. William Kreml is also running for the Green Party, and his slogan is "Make the Green Party cutting edge intellectually, politically, and morally. So he's just kind of a different brand of the Green Party. I don't know how to pronounce these two names. Mimi Sulcic and Angela Nicole Walker are tag teaming the Socialist Party USA Party, and they don't equivocate at all. They say we don't advocate for reforming capitalism. We actually advocate for the overthrow of capitalism. This is a revolutionary move. So they're not messing around. And, they critique Bernie Sanders for his drone program, which, just leave that there. Monica Moorhead is running for the Workers' World Party. And I listened to one of her speeches, and it's actually really difficult to find anything on her online. So I was happy to get some quotes and put them on here because no one knows anything about her. But, she just straight up calls the United States the belly of the beast and rejects the two-party system. And then, of course, we get to our favorites, D's Nuts and Vermin Supreme, independent satirical candidates, one of them a 15-year-old teenager who was officially the most successful independent candidate for president in 2 decades.
Sadly, he's ineligible.
Is he? Well,
he's not 18.
Let's give him a cigar anyway. But yeah, I actually wanted to give more to Vermin Supreme. I didn't. There's so much on him already, and he calls himself a friendly fascist. I really do think he's just kind of just a mix of like a comedian and he's kind of like I don't know what he is. What is he?
Didn't he beat Jeb Bush in New Hampshire? Like he got 4th place and Jeb Bush got like 6th or 7th.
He did, yeah, you're right.
But no, these nuts, man. That to me was a big point because no one knew who this guy was. He turned out to be a 15-year-old kid, but at one point he was polling at like 9% in a couple states.
Right. Yeah.
But that to me, and you actually made a good point here, is that it was indicative of how this election was going to be very anti-establishment because it kind of just goes to show how many people are really just, they're so fed up with the political system that they literally support some guy named D's Nuts that they have no clue who the guy is. Right.
Well, like Anti-Media reported, 55% of the American population wants an independent candidate to run against Clinton and Trump. Finally, we have, I think, one of the most interesting candidates, Zoltan Istvan from the Transhumanist Party, and he drives around a coffin-shaped bus, and he's a transhumanist, which means he believes a better society will be possible in a kind of post-scarcity, transhuman world in which humans have merged with machines. It's a kind of very techno-libertarian belief.
A world without hunger.
Right. Well, the idea is that when the singularity happens, that we'll be post-scarcity and we'll get a kind of utopia. There's a site called Utopia Singularity. I had a massive debate with the person just because I can't believe people think that AI is going to immediately transcend crony capitalism. But anyway, that's a different issue. But yeah, so quickly, I have this theory that I wanted to run by you guys. I think it's possible that we could see 6 parties, and this is how. So we already have the Green Party. I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to merge with the Green Party. What I think is going to happen is we're going to see a split in the Democratic Party where we're going to see the Bernie or Bust people form a more mainstream leftist version of the Democratic Party. That will split the party. So you'll have 3 leftist parties: the DNC crime syndicate, the Bernie or Bust people, and then the Green Party. On the right, you'll have the Tea Party, you'll have the new Trump coalition of the Republican side, and then you'll have the non-Tea Party standard-bearer Republicans like, say, a Jeb Bush or a Lindsey Graham. That's 3 parties on that side. I really do think that I don't know how quickly this dismantling will happen, but I think over the next 20 years we'll see those 6 distinct parties.
I think the DNC will actually be in 2 months.
Wow, nice.
Let's hope.
No, I mean, from everything I can get from the pulse of what's going on and how many people are already committed to going there and showing up, I mean, the split's there.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. The DNC, they don't even get it. They don't get it. A lot of people will turn and vote for Hillary, but man, they they're in for a rude awakening when that convention.
She's more conservative than Trump, and she's a legitimate neocon, a term which baby boomers don't even get. They don't
Right.
even understand what the new American century is, or the tenets of it, or how it related to 9/11. It's beyond them.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
I do want to make a comment, Nick, that I was happy about Bernie going to the wall down there to Friendship Park and stuff like that, and talk to the Dreamers moms and also Hector and some of the veterans on the deporting issue. So to me, that's one of the exciting things that I thought was great about Bernie going up there, to Friendship Park, which is, I don't see no friendship about it, but that's a different story, and actually had, Hector getting his wish to talk to him and stuff like that. I think it was really moving and stuff like that.
That's interesting. I didn't know he went down there. So he actually went down, checked out the border and stuff. That's cool.
Was he the only guy that showed up, Manny?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just he made a commitment to go see the deported veterans because somebody had told him about the bunker in Tijuana, and he was appalled. He couldn't believe that they actually existed, and so he learned that when he was in Juarez and another border and stuff like that. So it was kind of nice to talk to the guy that runs the place. He's a airborne ranger, stuff like that. And so it was really neat for him to actually go down there because, man, that place is stinky. I need to walk up there and, man, it's like going through the swamps. They don't even let you drive over there. Of course, I don't know how the hell they exception, but but I how it is with the patrol. They control everything.
Interesting, man. Yeah, and the deported veterans, these are guys that fought in Vietnam and a bunch of the other wars, and they were promised citizenship. They many of them were already living in the United States, and then they fought and they were never given citizenship, and then they ran into trouble with the laws. Many veterans do, whether people are affected by PTSD, Gulf War syndrome, all the other aspects that were involved in mental illness after Vietnam, and people wind up running into problems with the law, and then these guys got deported after they were promised all this stuff, after they put their lives on the line for the United States. And so, I'm glad that at least one candidate is coming out and shedding some light on that because it's ridiculous. If there's anything else you guys want to get out of the way, non-election related, let's do that now before we bring on our guest. One story I wanted to bring up was how Chuck Schumer gutted the bill that was passed by the Senate, which was going to allow people that were victims of 9/11 to sue governments that were found to be responsible, namely Saudi Arabia, which has been the subject of many accusations regarding their role in financing the 9/11 attacks and providing material support to the terrorists and that kind of thing. Chuck Schumer basically acted like he was for this. There's a quote here from him: "If Saudi Arabia participated in terrorism, of course they should be able to be sued for it." And then basically what he did was he crafted an entirely new section of the original bill, giving the Justice and State Departments the power to stay court actions indefinitely. So basically, if someone says, "Hey, you know what? I'm a victim, or I'm a family member of a victim of 9/11 terror attacks. Thanks to unclassified documents, we know that Saudi Arabia was behind it. I want to sue them." Well, then it's still basically up to the federal government to say, "Oh, yeah, you can go ahead and sue them," or "No, you can't." And so this guy, and he's a senator, and he's from New York. That's the thing that really was the biggest slap in the face. I mean, 9/11 obviously happened in New York City, and so you would expect politicians from New York to be especially, sensitive to the people who were affected by the terror attacks. And this same dude gutted the bill that was going to finally give people some kind of accountability for what went down. And so this to me is just a huge slap in the face. I wanted to get that out of the way. Because we're going to bring a special guest on. Because as we were talking about with these parties, there's a lot of different ideas out there, and in every political party, there's multiple candidates, and all kinds of different ideas that are strewn around. And really, to me, again, back to the original thought I was having, these elections and stuff, at least for now, it's the more important issue at hand is the war of ideas. You know, we need the war of ideas to be won first before any kind of political sea change can be expected. And we wrote an article. One of our writers wrote an article back when the Supreme Court made up their mind on the gay marriage issue. I'm trying to remember when that was. I'm pretty sure it was last year sometime, when the Supreme Court said, you know what, yeah, the whole country can now have same-sex marriage. But the whole point of the article was making the argument that it wasn't the Supreme Court that all of a sudden came along and found, you know, the moral ground to say, you know what, you know, this is the right thing to do, you know. And it's just in the same vein, it's not states like Colorado and Washington. It's not their politicians coming around and saying, you know what, the war on cannabis is a fraud. You know, this is wrong. We're going to just start ending it. It's not the politicians. It's the public opinion. And that's the point that I really want to get across, is that it's not so much the people that we're voting for. It's really the attitude and the mindset of the public that is more important, and that's what really makes these politicians do what when they do what we want them to do. It's not because they're just having some newfound, you know, respect for freedom or equality or whatever the topic is. It's because, you know, it's finally become popular enough for it to be worth them to do it. You know. Hey, you guys help me out. I'm having a little technical issue here.
That sucks.
Well, Nick, I want to make a comment on something you said about, you know, the New York politician opening the doors to sue Saudi Arabia or any other country, you know. Well, the reason they're going to let that happen, if it was an inside job, that means you're going to be suing the United States. You know what I mean?
Hello? Yeah, exactly. Manny, thanks for covering for me there. So we're being joined now by Will Coley. He's actually a vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. What's up, Will?
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Pretty good. So we want to invite you on today because we actually had a big article today regarding like a bunch of the different political parties and a bunch of the candidates out there. And since you're a friend of mine and since you're running for the vice presidency for the Libertarian Party, I figured why not? Why not have Will on tonight? So first of all, you're running as a libertarian. Tell us a little bit about it, because, you know, there's so many myths out there, and libertarianism is, you know, the name has been, you know, watered down by people like Glenn Beck, and it's been, people blame it for things, other people like it for other reasons. I mean, tell us, you know, what's the essentials of like the Libertarian Party?
Well, I guess the central construct of the philosophy of libertarianism and of the Libertarian Party is the non-aggression principle, which basically means that you can't, you know, hurt other people or take their stuff. I mean, it's a pretty simple, straightforward philosophy that says that, you know, as long as I don't aggress against you or use force against you, then you don't have a right to use the same against me. That also cannot be delegated to another person. So if I can't come to your house and put a gun in your face and take your money, then that also means that I can't tell someone else that they can do it for me, nor can I put 50 people together in a room and have them write it down on a piece of paper, and suddenly that makes it more valid.
I mean, it sounds like a pretty good idea on paper, right? So I'm guessing that you'd probably be in favor of like abolishing the IRS and getting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
get rid of the drug war, get rid of the IRS, get rid of the TSA, Department of Homeland Security, privatize or community. Or personally, I think that the government shouldn't have any. What's the word I'm looking for? They shouldn't have any dealings in the enforcement of law. That's a personal philosophy. That's not really a part of libertarianism. It's something of my own, myself personally. I don't feel that the state should be involved in the enforcement of law, because what happens is you create a situation where what you have today. Now, law is used as a way for the state to oppress and to extort the people so that it can live off of the people like a virus or a parasite. So I mean, these are things that I personally like. The privatization of the police force. Some libertarians are in favor of that, and some aren't. So you have different factions within the libertarian movement. Some that are more moderate, and then others like myself, which are I guess the classification is radical. I just see myself as wanting to take the ball further than my less radical friends, so to speak.
Interesting. So, these kind of questions arise pretty often when talking about like libertarianism and stuff. And so the first question I asked you is, about the IRS. So the first thing that people are going to ask that are kind of like naysayers are going to say, well, then, how do we make sure that kids get a good education? How do we make sure that we have roads? I mean, typical kind of stereotypical stuff, but it's a question that pretty much anyone that's not familiar with with a good familiarization with political philosophy or libertarianism and stuff like that are going to ask. So, I mean, what is your answer to that?
Well, my answer to that personally is the same people who build them now and the same people who built them before those taxes existed, before the IRS existed, before there was an IRS, the United States, schools that outperform we have today.
Sorry,
we had services.
Connection is falling out a little bit. It's a little choppy for us on this side.
Sorry about that. I'm interstate through North Florida. I'm on our way to the National Convention right now.
Oh, okay.
So, sorry about that.
Oh, go ahead.
But yeah, the answer I normally give is that it's the same people that build them now and the same people who built them for hundreds of years before we had the IRS. The IRS is only an organization that it's less than 100 years old. Yet we've had schools, we've had services, we've had roads and hospitals. We've had all of these things long before the IRS existed. So getting rid of the IRS is not going to stop Americans from having these things. We will simply provide them in our communities in the ways that we used to.
Sounds pretty interesting. And, I think that the breaking down of for instance, with the education system here in the United States, I mean, it's become this huge, wasteful, bloated bureaucracy where we spend so much money. And now looking at college and how expensive it is, but yet at the same time, as more money is poured in, it seems like the quality of education has gone down. And in fact, I've seen plenty of people argue that the education, at least K through 9, is actually almost like, in some ways, a brainwashing of getting rid of the ability of children to question authority and stuff. And I think that phenomena lends a lot of credence to some of these libertarian ideas on non-governmental solutions. Will, tell us a little bit. Go ahead.
What we've actually seen, if you look at the numbers, is that the more that the federal government has gotten involved in our education system and the more money they've poured into our education system, the more our country has slid down. Actually, the education system where my wife is from originally in Kenya is far superior to the one that we have here in the United States. And if you told me that, when I was in high school that was going to be the case, there's no way I would have believed you. But, my wife came here and basically was bored for her first couple of years of college because they were doing stuff in like freshman and sophomore year of college that she had done in her freshman and sophomore year of high school.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah,
and
we've seen it happen again with Common Core now. It's not making things better. I have my own daughter that's 16, and the level of education that she received in a post No Child Left Behind education system that I did, they're like incomparable to one another. And that's something that the American public needs to take a long, hard look at. and admit to itself, is that the more that we've given the bureaucrats control over this part of our society, the worse it has functioned, and the lower the results have been that have come out of it.
So, Will, who is your running mate? Who's running for the presidency on your ticket?
Well, actually, in the Libertarian Party, you don't technically have running mates. You have like preferred running mate. So a candidate will endorse someone that they prefer would be, if they win the nomination, this is the person that if I win the nomination, I'm going to ask to be seated with me. But the delegates themselves are the ones who actually make that decision. It's not like the other two major parties. We actually have a full race. We have a slate of about 8 candidates in total. From all over, and, different people from all over the country with different things that they bring to the race, and we will be selected after the presidential candidate is selected. So they'll do a series of ballots, and whoever wins, then that's the presidential candidate. He'll get up and give a little speech about well, I want this VP candidate to be the one you vote for. And then the delegates will vote, and it'll be the same thing again. They'll do a series of ballot, and when the smoke clears, whoever's left standing will be the vice presidential candidate. So it could very easily be me with any of the candidates that are offered. But the candidate who asked me to join the race was Darrell W. Perry, the candidate for the Radical Caucus.
Interesting. So you could actually, there's a chance you could wind up being Gary Johnson's VP or John McAfee's VP, for instance.
I could be. There is a very real possibility that I could.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit about your specific platform. Like, what is it that what is your argument going in there, and what are you telling people? Why should they vote for you to be the VP of the Libertarian Party?
Well, there's actually a couple things that I've been talking about. As far as policy is concerned, I want to change the conversation in this country surrounding a few specific issues. Most of our presidential candidates are very strong on domestic policy, very strong on economics, very strong on legal, like in the drug war, tax, all of that kind of stuff. They're very strong on. But what we lack is someone who has experience in the realm of immigration and in the realm of foreign policy, which are two topics that are absolutely huge in the election cycle this year. Even if they're not particularly important to the American public, they are important to the media, evidently, because that's all the media wants to talk about. So I want to bring a particular personal expertise in those two areas, because we don't have that on the ticket, and no matter who we nominate, we won't have that on the ticket without my voice. I work with libertarian activists in 3 continents and 12 different countries at the very least. Help set up a libertarian party in Pakistan, in Turkey. Work with activists to help to create an economic civil disobedience movement in Malaysia. We've worked all over the globe in spreading the ideas of liberty, and what we bring to the table is the ability to say, the libertarians, they actually have it right, because we've been able to do what the libertarians say is what will work. That what you do to spread the ideas of freedom is you don't nation build with the United States military. You don't occupy foreign nations. You provide good examples and you provide good ideas, and that works in a far superior manner than dropping hellfire missiles on people's houses and their neighbor's wedding.
What parts of the globe that you've been putting these ideas out have gained the most traction, in your opinion?
Pakistan, Malaysia, Turkey would be the top 3. Then Egypt would come in next, and this is just going by like our Facebook page and our website, and where we're seeing organizations pop up as well. Pakistan has definitely had the one of the largest. Turkey easily right there with Pakistan. I mean, I want to say 2 years ago you had 20,000 Turks take over a park to protest free speech restrictions, and when they polled that group, 81% of them self-identified as libertarians. You've got shop owners in Malaysia who are literally going to jail because they're willing to say on a piece of paper in the window of their business, we accept gold and silver, and and instead of accepting, or in addition to accepting, I believe it's called the ringgit, which is the paper fiat money that they have in Malaysia. In Pakistan, you've got a Libertarian Party, you've got a Libertarian think tank now, and you have a precious metals. It's a functional bimetal bank where you deposit your precious metals in the bank, and then you take what they call a Wakala card, and you spend the value of that metal anywhere you could swipe a debit card. So we see that these ideas that we've been advocating for and pushing in these communities, they've taken root in a few activists there who have then taken that and worked tirelessly to make it bigger and bigger and bigger every day. And we want to bring that experience to the table because we see that doing it our way is actually successful, whereas the Pentagon and the Department of Defense and the government thus far, their way is not working.
Yeah, well, their way is by drone strike and by military coup and all kinds of awful ideas that are being forced down the people's throats, down the barrel of a tank gun.
Cheap and dirty.
Yeah, exactly. Will, we mentioned earlier in the show, we were talking about a bunch of political parties and candidates. One of the things that we mentioned was how the Green Party is definitely going to be getting a huge windfall if and when Bernie Sanders drops out of the race, because a lot of his supporters have pretty much vowed not to support Hillary Clinton, and many that I've seen and talked to have said that they're going to support Jill Stein and the Green Party. Are you seeing this kind of windfall also heading towards the Libertarian Party that are kind of people disenfranchised with the whole Trump phenomenon?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually had, within the first couple days of announcing our campaign, we had two guys that worked for Trump, that worked for Bernie, that quit their job and came and worked for me. And we also had a Jewish guy that lives in New Jersey that was working for Trump and quit his job and come design artwork for us. So, yeah, we've seen that kind of windfall ourselves. Even just my own campaign staff is basically made up of about half people from both sides of the aisle, funny enough, who have defected from various campaigns and have come to work for me because they believe in the ideas that we're bringing and they believe in what we're trying to do.
That's awesome, man. And, you know, we were talking about this earlier in the show about how important it really is to just break up, at the very least, break up these two huge private, corporate parties, whatever we want to describe them as, the Republicans and the Democrats. And, the Libertarians and the Green Party bring a lot of great ideas to the table that I think resonate with many more people that, people just don't realize that it resonates with them because it's so hard to get media attention for these ideas. And we were talking about a lot of these candidates. Many of them are opposed to the Federal Reserve in some way. And so I was kind of wondering if it was no coincidence that the media doesn't show much attention to these candidates. Well,
now I'm going to probably get in trouble because, I've run a really, really clean campaign up until now, and I haven't really delved in any negative campaign discussion. But there's this new guy that just entered the race. He was pulled in by Gary Johnson, and he is a former task manager for the Council on Foreign Relations. And lo and behold, as soon as he entered the race, Gary Johnson and him or him have been on TV twice a day, every day.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the media is portraying him to the public as the Libertarian candidate and the Libertarian vice presidential candidate, and the nomination is in 3 days. Like, I'm on my way to the national convention right now where the decision will be made as to who will be the presidential candidate and the vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party, whereas all of a sudden we have, a CFR guy that gets into the race, and you've got wall-to-wall media coverage And the media acts like there's nobody else even running. Like, these guys won the nomination a week ago. There is no national convention. What's that? No. These guys are already.
Sorry about that, man. That's the end of the show. Thanks for calling in. Will Coley, VP candidate for the Libertarian Party. Make sure you check him out.
Through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.